I don't want to let you go without talking about AI, at least what I'm observing around me, even in my circle of relationships. I think AI is particularly impacting product management in a very meaningful way. So I'm
Mm,
seeing the job description itself of what a PM should be doing changing a lot. Of course, we have seen a lot of rifts in the past 2 years. So I think
yeah.
orgs are being rethought about the
Yeah.
ratios of PMs to engineers. A lot of those things are being thought of from grounds up. A lot of these things are changing, right? How do you think people should think about really dealing with these
Yeah.
changes? In particular, also in terms of you're now seeing this new generation of companies getting created, right? Which are a lot of them are AI first or AI native. How does one really go about finding the next job? Like, how do they know which company to join? How to even position themselves? Say you are a mid-career leader in a large company or a scale startup, right? Like, how do you even get in front of the
Yeah.
right people?
Yeah. Love this. I think the pendulum swings are just wild and unexpected if you're keeping your head down within the safety, let's call it, of your current employer. And I've been in the workforce for probably all of the major recessions in the last couple decades. And so even as a fresh grad, employees who've given years of their lives to a company, when a downturn happens, they let them go. And I don't really blame the companies for having to make these hard choices. Nobody wants to let lose their trained workforce, but tough decisions do need to be made when you're fighting for survival. So I think as an employee within that space, it's so incredibly important to keep an eye on the macro changes happening in your industry. To your point, AI is getting a lot of spotlight right now, and go out and learn what's happening with the new technologies. Talk to as many people as you can to learn about and hear about how they're thinking about these trends. Read and consume as much information as possible to have your own point of view on those subjects. It does take extra work, it's extra effort, but I think if you approach it with a beginner's mindset and look at it as a learning opportunity, it's fun too. Like even being simply open to these conversations, I think you can start a flywheel of meeting interesting people, working on amazing new areas. You and I both love talking to founders in these spaces, but you start finding different circles that are outside the four walls of your day job. And all of those interactions, those learnings, that information can feed back to your actual work or create a spark that allows you to explore new opportunities that are the most interesting to you. And so getting out of the comfort zone can be quite beneficial on a few fronts. For me, I like starting with a series of questions that can help me think more about a space. More recently, that was actually with self-driving cars more than like Gen AI, but it was just fun to think about how quickly does a customer trust that the car is safe upon experience a self-driving ride? Or does this need to be like an old school elevator ride where there was somebody there that was manning the elevator, even when they didn't need to be, just to make people feel safe walking into this elevator? Or what are the economics of these cars longer term? What changes in city planning might be happening when the technology is replacing all human drivers? Just starting with some broad questions helps me because I just enjoy thinking about the effects of technology in our lives. But it's dancing wide, it's having fun with creative questions and then making up answers on my own. And then I like to go and read about that area and just be more grounded and knowledgeable in that space. It's even better when I can try out the products directly too, which I guess in self-driving cars, it's been fantastic to be in San Francisco to experience all that firsthand. And then there's always, I feel like when I'm starting to think or read about specific topics, there's always a great event or a dinner or a networking reception happening, especially in SF, where I can talk to people who are just so much smarter than I am and always have more details on the subject. More recently, when I was thinking about self-driving, I went to some VC happy hour where the head of product for Waymo was hanging out. And it was just such a stroke of luck for sure. But I also believe these opportunities present themselves if you're open to them. So being prepared by having all those questions and reading and like having a deeper conversation just because you cared about that subject to learn some parts of it ahead of time, then creates that space for you to talk to more builders or founders or policymakers or other leaders. And once people know you as that smart, thoughtful, passionate person, they also want to work with you in whatever way possible. And so it becomes a bit of a reciprocal relationship where hopefully, especially as like senior folks that are listening in, you're never job hunting again. Instead, you're just figuring out which opportunity and which set of people you want to build something with next. So I guess the TLDR there is relationships matter. So invest the time in building them because it helps you build out a more fully fledged career path that's not the traditional route, which I don't think will exist very much longer.
I think for anyone who's working in technology, you got to be ahead of the nine ball in terms of change. And I always tell people that, hey, be proactive about it. And I think to your
Yes,
point, learn about it, be ready to deal with that change and build your relationships beforehand, right? Like
exactly.
I think this whole concept of job hunting is going to change or it's going to be in a
Yes,
very different form. And I think the value of in-person relationships, I think events and mixers, and you and I have met for the first time at a VC event. I want to give a
totally.
shout out to Nakul Mandan of Audacious Ventures, who
Yes,
organized this operator mixer. And then that's where you and
yes,
I connected, right? And some of these events are some of the best relationships get built in small groups in
yep,
these events. So I think I am going IRL, which I
yes,
know for a lot of folks who are from the post pandemic era, I think it might seem strange to them, but I cannot emphasize the importance of in person enough.
yes. It really helps. And
Yeah.
it just feels nice to see people again in person.